over in the temple. The temple had to be completed before the priesthood or the order of the priesthood could begin. You see what I'm saying? So right at the end of that time frame there, we got a little line between the 23rd and the 24th, and then you got the number 1. That means when the first order of the priesthood began. So go back to verse 7, and you'll see it said, now the first lot fell to Yehorib. Okay? Now, go back up to that top line, to where the number 24 was, there at the front. That's the 24th course, and then you find the next one is number 1, and see up above it we have the name Yehorib. On the first half of the year up there, I've got the actual name of the family according to the order of the priesthood. So if you'll go down to number 8, you'll find what? Abiyah. Now it says that he, during the course of Abiyah, now go into Luke chapter 1. See up above Abiyah, it says the angel spoke to Zechariah. Can you see that in those little words there? Let's go to Luke chapter 1. Actually, this is one of those things where it's real easy to calculate the birth of the Messiah as long as we try to use the Old Testament. When you throw it out, it's kind of hard to, figure everything out. But in Luke chapter 1, beginning in verse 8, he said, and so it was that while he was serving as priest before El in the order of his division. Who was that? Verse 5. Zechariah. Zechariah. And he was of the division of Abiyah, it says in verse 5. His wife of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. She was a Levite as well. He was serving in as high priest. And see, that's what we're showing up there. and go down into verse 11. Then the angel of Yahweh appeared to him standing on the right side of the altar of incense. Where was he? Was he in the temple? He was in the holy place. And remember, it says that he was fixing to burn the incense, right? That's what it says up in verse 9. According to the custom of the priesthood, his lot fell to burn incense. The angel of Yahweh appeared to him standing on the right side of the altar of incense. He's standing facing the altar of incense, and the angel is on the right side of it. And when Zechariah saw, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said to him, do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer is heard, and your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you shall call his name Yochanan. Remember, John, or Yochanan, means for Yahweh has been gracious. And that's why he was chosen. He also talks about, verse 14, you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. Okay. If you'll go back on the calendar, that week of the 8th, okay, if you'll notice, I've got the next 3 courses there, 9th, 10th, 11th. At the top, I've got the words conception of Elizabeth approximately. According to Luke chapter 1, verses 23 and 24. Look down at that. Verse 23 of Luke 1, and so it was as soon as the days... I got to have another tape that they're on top of that little desk right there sticking up on them things. And we'll try to get all this on tape. I didn't realize I was going to go this far, but in case anybody wants to, later on to get a copy of this and have the tape, you can match them up as you're going through with it. But thank you. Okay. In Luke chapter 1 there in verse 23 it says, and so it was as soon as the days of his service were completed that he departed to his own house. Now after those days, meaning after the days that he spent, that let's say that his at that period of time ended around the 24th day of the month. Remember, this was on the on the Hebrew calendar of the month of Sivan, around the 24th, close to the end of the month. After that, she conceived, right? Now, I don't know exactly to say, well, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I don't know which day she conceived, okay? But it was during that time frame, within that 2 or 3 week period there, that she conceived. Verse 24, now after those days, his wife Elizabeth conceived, and she hid herself 5 months. Okay? She hid herself 5 months. And then in verse 25, thus Yahweh has dealt with me in the days when he looked on me to take away my reproach among men. Now in verse 26 it says, now in the 6th month the angel Gabriel was sent by Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth. He went to speak to who? A young girl by the name of Miriam. Now if we go from that point in time, and if you count, that's in the month of Sivan, and you count down, you know, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's kind of like Hishvan. Now you're in that time frame, 6 months, right? In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent by Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth to a virgin betrothed to a man whose name was Joseph of the house of David. The virgin's name was Miriam. And having come in, the angel said to her, rejoice, highly favored, Yahweh is with you. Blessed are you among women. But when she saw, she was troubled at his saying, and considered what manner of greeting this was. Then the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with Yahweh. Can you imagine how she would have felt having these words said to her? And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Yehoshua. They got Jesus in the text, but if you go back in the Strong Concordance, it'll tell you the number 2424, and it tells you that it comes from 3091 in the Hebrew, Yehoshua. Huh?
The Hebrew word.
The Hebrew word, yeah. Yehoshua. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Highest, and Yahweh Elohim will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Yaakov forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end. How come people keep saying the old stuff's done away with, and yet he's going to be the king over the house of Yaakov? He's the king of Israel, right? How come people keep saying all that old stuff's done away with, and they're under the new, and they got Messiah, and he's going to be their king? And he said, he's the king of the house of Israel, the house of Yaakov. Is this something that's so simple people just never see it? It's always been there. It's always been there, isn't it? Okay. Anyhow, he goes on in verse 34. Then Miriam said to the angel, how can this be, since I do not know a man? And the angel answered and said to her, the Holy Spirit, the set-apart word, will come upon you, and the power of the highest will overshadow you. Therefore also that Holy One who is to be born will be called the Son of El. The word, the Spirit, is going to come upon her. The word that's already been spoken. And it was back in Isaiah 7:14. It said that the virgin shall conceive. And that word that was spoken is now coming to pass right here in her. And his word is his power, it says in Hebrews chapter 1, right? Verse 36, now indeed Elizabeth, your relative, has also conceived a son in her old age, and this is now the 6th month for her who was called barren. For with Yahweh nothing will be impossible. Now, Elizabeth is 6 months pregnant when Miriam conceives, right? And she's going to go down and stay with Elizabeth. Verse 39, Mary arose in those days and went to the hill country with haste to a city of Judah, and entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth. And it happened when Elizabeth heard the greeting of Mary that the babe leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Spirit. So she's 6 months, Miriam is pregnant. Verse 56. And Mary remained with her about 3 months and returned to her house. Verse 57. Now Elizabeth's full time came for her to be delivered, and she brought forth a son. So about the end of 9 months, she brought forth a son, right? If we go back up again, and let's just start counting a little bit. From Sivan, she would have conceived, and let's say, Tammuz would be 1, and then Av 2, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Somewhere between Shevat and Adar, about the end of that time, she would have been what? Fully time for her to give birth. And if she gave birth after that time, it would put you right back up about what? About the 14th of Nisan. That's Passover. Right? So John the Baptist would have been born at Passover. Are y'all following me here? Is what I'm at, okay? Now, when he was born at Nisan, right? Now, how far along is Mary?
3 months.
3 months, right? All right, so then if we go on and then, you know, into ER would have been 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 would have put her right there in Tishrei, wouldn't it? Isn't that Tabernacles? So 6 months after Yochanan being born at Passover, Mary would have given birth at Tabernacle. That puts him being born at Sukkot. If he was born on the first day, then on the 8th day, he would be circumcised.
Yeah.
And circumcision would have been according to Torah, and circumcision of a child, male child on the 8th day did what? Brought him into the covenant, right? All of us who actually are circumcised in the heart on this 8th day, which is the day of new beginning, is a symbolic picture of us being brought into the covenant. When we look at Shemini Atzarei, the 8th day, or the 8th on top of the 7 days of completion, when all things are completed, okay, then we who have been circumcised in the heart will be brought into the new place, the new city, the separate ground, separated from all the common people, separated by a wall or a fence, which is a wall around the city of Yerushalayim. The wall is all built on the foundations of the apostles and the prophets, you know, and then the gates going into the city have all got the names of the apostles going into this wall that surrounds this new city. And on this 8th day, all of us who walk in obedience to Torah will go into that place with him. I think that's kind of a neat picture. Are we seeing the prophetic significance? And all the festivals lead up to that, right? Because at the Passover it talks about the cup when Messiah what? Died to establish, right? The covenant within us. We drink of that cup. We may not have been present at Shavuot when he gave the Torah to begin with, right? But we can still drink that cup of Passover and accept the betrothal that he came to die and give us and establish the covenant in our heart. And then as we begin to follow all of those festivals and look to the prophetic picture of him coming back and forth to the earth, we can trace him right through until he comes together, all of us, and we go into that holy city. Yeah, hallelujah. Somebody out there in telephone land said. If we go on while we're talking about it here, look down at the bottom on that little chart and you'll see between September, under the word September, under the letter B, you've got that word there. It said the death of Herod. In the writings of Josephus, it tells us that Herod died in that month in this year 4 BC. Okay? Well, if Messiah was born that time, then he would have been circumcised on the 8th day. Then Herod sent out the army to find all of those children and kill them, all the men children, right? But then somehow or other, Herod died. Now, if you'll go back up to the top half of the year under the word March, and you'll see the term there, it said a lunar eclipse, okay? On March the 13th. You see where I've got that written in there? In the writings of Josephus, he tells us that in the year that Herod died, okay, there was a lunar eclipse on March the 13th of that year. That lunar eclipse, according to astronomical charts, occurred in the year what they call 4 BC, which tells us then 4 BC was the year of the eclipse, and that was the year that Herod died, and Josephus tells us that it was that year with the eclipse, and he died in September. When he sent out the soldiers, right, They went out looking for the child, but by that time they'd already sent Joseph and the baby out, and they fled down to Egypt, is what it tells us. Go to Luke, or Matthew chapter 2. We'll come back to Luke chapter 2, but go to Matthew chapter 2 right now. And in verse 1 there it says, when Yehosha was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king. So this is before his death. Behold, wise men, or magi, or they came from the east, searching for who? To Jerusalem, saying, where is he who has been born king of the Yehudi? For we have seen his star in the east. It wasn't an eastern star. They were in the east, and they saw the star, and then they came west, following the star, right? How did they even know to look for this star in the first place? It was the prophecy of Balaam, back over in the book of Numbers, who said, a star shall arise out of Jacob, or out of Judah, right? These then were people who lived in Babylon, and yet they were still there after Judah had gone into captivity. They'd never come home, but now these wise men came back. How many was there?
We don't know.
Don't have any idea. Could have been 2, could have been 3, could have been 40. But they were carrying what? 3 different types of gifts. If you'll notice in verse 2, they had come to Herod, and they were saying, where is he who has been born king of the Yehudi? For we have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. Now Herod would be really upset about that, right? Because he didn't want nobody to take over his kingdom. History tells us Herod killed his own children so that they wouldn't take his kingdom away from him. The books in history tell us that he would be better off to be a pig in his court than it would be one of his own children, because he wouldn't kill a pig, but he killed his own children. I mean, history, verifies these things. Verse 4, when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes, the people together, he inquired of them where the Mashiach was to be born. So evidently these people knew the prophecies that the Mashiach would be born. Verse 5, so they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet. This was Micah, right? But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not the least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you shall come a ruler, who will shepherd my people Israel. There again, the prophecy says that the Messiah who's going to come is going to shepherd who? The children of Israel. Not the Gentiles. Right? Okay. Verse 7, then Herod, when he had secretly called the wise men, determined from them what time the star appeared, and he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the young child, and when you have found, bring back word to me that I may come and worship him also. We all know from history that's not what he wanted to do. When they heard the king, they departed, and behold, the star which they had seen in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. I submit to you, that wasn't a planet.
So really it should say, we were in the east and saw the star.
Right, and they came west.
Right.
That's right.
Not the star was not west.
I know. But that's how the Eastern Star Division of the
Right.
Masonic Lodge was born. But,
Yeah, well, they're on the wrong side.
okay. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And let me tell you something, there's only 5 miles between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, right? There ain't no conjunction of stars in the world that you can follow for 5 miles. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So there was something there that Yahweh created those people could see and watch and look at and followed for 5 miles down to Jerusalem. Verse 11, and when they had come into the... See, they got that word house in there that the translator stuck in there, which makes everybody think, oh, well, they must have moved out of the stable and they're in a house somewhere, so it could have been 2 years and all this kind of stuff. But that word that's translated house there also means family. So when they came into the family, they saw the young child with Miriam, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented gifts to him, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, being divinely warned in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed for their own country another way. Sure didn't take them 2 years to go that 5 miles from Jerusalem to Bethlehem and give him the gifts. I mean, think about it with what people say, okay? It just couldn't be.
When they came into the family, was it in the sukkah?
In the sukkah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't born to stay.
Well, they were still doing the Feast of Tabernacles. There were too many people. They couldn't get no room in the inn, so they had to stay in a sukkah. Fulfill the prophecy. Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of Yahweh appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I bring you word. For Herod will seek the child to destroy him. Herod's still alive. He sent him down to Egypt. But Josephus says he died in September. So it's still, it ain't 2 years later. Can't be. Herod's still alive. Right? I mean, when you look at all the factors that's involved in the whole thing, and you have to put the truth together, right, to get the whole picture. Verse 14, when he arose, he took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Yahweh through the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt I called my son. How far is it from Bethlehem to Egypt? About 20 miles to the brook of Egypt. How far over the border do you have to go to be in Egypt?
About a foot.
How long did he have to be there before Yahweh could call him back?
Second.
He didn't have to be there very long, did he? But we know they were long enough there for Joseph to get one more night's sleep.
Right.
Okay. Then Herod, when he saw that he was deceived by the wise men, was exceedingly angry, and he sent forth to put to death all the male children who were in Bethlehem and in all its districts, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had determined from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, A voice was heard in Ramah, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they were no more. How many children did Rachel have? Two. Joseph and Benjamin, right? And then how many did Joseph have?
Two.
And then out of those two, Ephraim and Manasseh became what? All the others, the multitude of the fullness of the Gentiles came from those two. And yet a lot of these, they're saying Rachel weeping for her children. And at the same time, it's still Rachel weeping for her children, because where are they? Scattered among the nations of the world. And it's when they hear this word that they find out who they are, when they begin to come back home, and begin to come back, and find out who they are. Once you know who you are, then you know what belongs to you. And once you know what belongs to you, then you know what your responsibility is. Then you begin to fulfill the task that Yahweh's called you to do. And that's to establish his covenant in the earth. Among who? The Gentiles are his people. The house of Israel, scattered among the nations of the world. Verse 19, But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of Yahweh appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. So however long he was down there, he's having a dream, and an angel appeared to him in a dream. And he's saying, Arise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. Then he arose, took the child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea instead of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned by Yah in a dream, he turned aside in the region of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, He shall be called a Nazarene. So they came out of Egypt, went up into Judea for something, didn't stay there, and then went on to Nazareth, right? I'll go back to Matthew chapter 2. I mean Luke chapter 2, excuse me. Well, I said a while ago we're going to go back to Luke. I know all of y'all heard this before, just bear with us, because a lot of people are just hearing it for the first time. In Luke chapter 2, I said, It came to pass in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. History tells us that this census was ordered to take place during the Feast of Tabernacles, so all those people could be registered there in Jerusalem, right? Because why? All the sons have to come down to Jerusalem at the Feast of Tabernacles. That's what he said, so they could all be registered while they're there. So all went to be registered to his own city. Joseph went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Miriam, his mother, his betrothed wife, who was with child. So it was that while they were there, the days were complete for her to be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son and wrapped him in swaddling cloths and laid him in a manger or feed trough, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now there were in the same country shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. And behold, the angel of Yahweh stood before them, and the glory of Yahweh shone around them, and they were greatly afraid. Then the angel said to them, Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people. Good tidings, great joy. The season of our gladness. For there is born to you this day in the city of David a Savior, deliverer, who is Yahweh the Mashiach. And this will be the sign to you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling cloths, lying in a feed trough. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising Yahweh and saying, Glory to El in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. Now he said you're going to find this babe wrapped in swaddling cloth lying in a manger, right? So that must be the same night that he was born, reckon? And you got all these angels singing this song and all this noise, you know, reverberating around in the heavens and off the mountains. It wasn't exactly a silent night. In verse 15, so it was when the angels had gone away from them into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, Let us now go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has come to pass, which Yahweh has made known to us. And they came with haste and found Miriam and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger. They weren't in the house. They were in the feed trough, in the sukkah in the stable. And when they had seen, they made widely known the saying which was told them concerning this child. They made widely known. That means they went out and told everybody. And all those who heard marveled at those things which were told them by the shepherds. But Miriam kept all these things and pondered in her heart. Then the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising El for all the things that they had heard and seen as it was told them. And when 8 days were completed for the circumcision of the child, his name was called Yehoshuah, the name given by the angel before he was conceived in the womb. Verse 22. Now when the days of her purification according to the Torah of Moses were complete, they brought him to Jerusalem, presented him to Yahweh. How long was that?
41 days.
33 plus 7, 40 days. So after that, probably about on the 41st day. Because that's what it said. When the days of her purification, they brought him to Jerusalem, right? And we get that number of days of purification from Leviticus chapter 12, verses 2 through 8, right? Verse 23, As it is written in the Torah of Yahweh, every male who opens a womb shall be called holy or separate to Yahweh, and to offer a sacrifice according to what is said in the law of Yahweh, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Y'all ever notice or ever hear people say, oh, they were poor, didn't have no money, and they couldn't bring nothing, so they had to get these doves? But the scripture plainly says that it was according to what the Torah says.
If a lamb couldn't be found.
Yeah, whatever comes to your hand is what it says in Leviticus. And we we just read over there a while ago, you know, when Solomon completed the temple and they did all that sacrifice and everything, and they killed, what, 100 and some odd thousand lambs, and how many thousand, you know, sheep and all this kind of stuff. And here they are, you can't imagine how many people were being killed. And all them people coming down to Jerusalem, again it was a Feast of Tabernacles, and all these animals were being killed at that time. And they were trying to find a lamb that she could bring, or some kind of offering that she could bring that was perfect, that didn't have a blemish. Verse 23. Behold, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon, and this man was just and devout, waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was upon him. And it had been revealed to him by the Holy or the set-apart Spirit, word of Yahweh, that he would not see death before he had seen Yahweh's anointed. That's the Mashiach, right? The anointed of Yah. So he came by the Spirit in the temple, and when the parents brought in the child Yehoshua to do for him according to the custom of the law. You know, they must be Torah-abiding Israelites. And he took him up in his arms and blessed El and said, Yahweh, now you are letting your servant depart in peace, according to your word, for my eyes have seen your deliverance, or salvation, deliverance, which you have prepared before the face of all peoples, a light of revelation to the Gentiles, and the glory of your people Israel. How many times is that glory of your people Israel throughout the New Testament? People just ignore that that's in there, I guess, but they don't want to see it, I guess. And Joseph and his mother marveled at those things which were spoken of him. Then Simeon blessed him and said to Miriam his mother, Behold, this, or he is destined for the fall and rising of many in Israel, and for a sign which will be spoken against. Yes, a sword will pierce through your own soul also, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. A sword will pierce through her. Don't you know what she went through watching all the things that happened to her child? Knowing in advance what was going to take place. Now there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age and had lived with a husband 7 years from her virginity. And this woman, a widow of about 84 years, who did not depart from the temple, but served El with fastings and prayers night and day. Talk about dedication. How long has she been serving Yahweh? With dedication, fasting and prayers, night and day. How long? Week, 2 weeks? 84 years. I mean, we're trying, we're talking about trying to be, trying to be dedicated for a week or two, or a month. But now notice carefully in verse 38, and in that instant, and coming in that instant. What instant? While Simeon was speaking what he was saying up there, okay? Verse 34, Simeon blessed him and said to Mary his mother, Behold this child. While he was speaking, because those other things are just descriptive phrases, and coming in that instant while Simeon was speaking, she gave thanks to Yahweh and spoke of him to all those who looked for redemption in Jerusalem. So when they had performed all things according to the Torah of Yahweh, they returned to Galilee and their own city Nazareth. When did they come up to the temple? On the 41st day. When did they go back to Nazareth? At the end of that day. What happened to 2 years? Like organized religion teaches. Everything in Matthew chapter 2 and everything in Luke chapter 2 all took place within 41 days. Because both of them end with them going back to Nazareth. Isn't that not true? So if you'll notice on that sheet that I gave out, I've got that in there. It said all in 40 days or all in 41 days. The birth of Messiah, the circumcision, Herod killing the children, the completion of the days of her purification, his dedication in the temple, their flight to Egypt and the return, and then the move to Nazareth in Luke 2, 1 through 39. And all of that took place within 40 days. And then they left and they went back to Nazareth on the 41st day. The key to it is understanding, Leviticus chapter 12, on when she had to come in for a purification. The other key to the whole thing is going back to the time of Abijah and knowing when Zechariah was in the temple serving, right? It's not that hard to calculate it, really, is it? But if you throw out Torah, then you don't have any foundation for anything. So nobody knows.
You don't understand what they say.
And yet most people are really not, I don't hate to say they're not smart enough, but anybody can go to the encyclopedias and read in there where it says Christmas ain't it. And when was he born?
It's the one they threw away and added to.
Yeah. But the thing about it is, all these things, and if you, and on there I've got, notice down at the bottom there under the word December, those little notes, it says Elizabeth is 6 months. Angel speaks to Miriam about, the conception. And that's in Luke 1, 26 through 36. All those little things are laid out in there, and all them little notes I've got references to the scriptures where it talks about, when the angel was talking to Zechariah and Miriam and so forth, trying to lay it out on the calendar. And you'll notice I got the first number 1 on the bottom one there on that week of 24th through the 30th of Tishrei, because that would have been the week following the dedication of the temple after Tabernacles by Solomon. That's when it started. Yeah, down on that bottom one right there. They can't see that on the camera, but anybody got any questions about that?
It's clear.
Clear as mud, or, you know?
After the 15th or 20th time of my hearing it, it's clear. The first 10, it was not.
How do we know that Egypt was just 20 miles away?
Look on the map. There's a little line on your map that says the brook of Egypt, and that was the border of Egypt at that time. And between the border of Egypt, the brook of Egypt there, and Jerusalem is about 20 miles. How far is that to walk in one day?
One day.
Oh, okay. Well, now, wait a minute. She just had a baby and riding on a donkey.
Riding on the donkey one
Well, let's say it took 2 days.
day. Okay, today.
I mean, if you say it took a week, you're still not, you know.
This is-
How long were they down there?
Keep looking, that's the border.
Well, yeah, but that's further than 20
Not long.
miles.
She was
How far is it?
Bethlehem.
I don't know. Where's the scale here?
Well, it's on the
Okay,
map.
it would have been even at 40 miles.
2 days.
2 days.
It's way further than that.
Look here. Here's Bethlehem, and here's the brook of Egypt, and this is 20 miles.
Are y'all figuring it out yet?
On map number 4.
With all of y'all on the,
Well, that's in.
goodness gracious.
That's 62.
All
That was
those
what?
Years, I believe.
Oh,
that
okay.
they
Did you
go
just put
all
that
the
one
way
teaching on that
across
tape?
the mile. And that didn't fit. But whenever we know.
No, just a few minutes of the other was, you know, we got into it. But
Was in Egypt.
what they're calculating right now, somebody said, well, it was too far, you know, to Egypt. It was a lot further than 20 miles. So somebody's looking on the map, and that somebody's fixing to tell us here in just a minute, as soon as he calculates the distance from Bethlehem to Egypt. Have you got it calculated?
I'm trying to find where it said brook. There it is. I got it. Hold on a second.
He found where it said the brook of Egypt.
Okay, hold on a second.
21.5.
I was on the wrong.
How far?
I was on the wrong.
What did you just say on the telephone?
Yeah.
21.5 miles.
21.5 miles.
From Bethlehem to the brook of Egypt. How does he know that?
I'm looking on. Hold on a second.
21.5 miles.
Daryl's calculating. Now that other Daryl, you know. Not the one in Australia, but the other, you know.
On
My
map
brother
number
Daryl.
4.
Yeah.
Susie's
This
brother
is 50
Daryl.
miles right here.
Okay, I'm the way that I'm looking at it here on map 4, according to their scale right there.
Remember, Daryl, we got lost in Israel.
Remember Daryl, he said y'all got lost in Israel, you
A
know.
couple of times,
A
more than
couple of
one.
times. Okay.
About 90 miles is what I calculate.
About 90 miles. How long did that take them to get there?
2 or 3 days.
Want to give them a week just to be on the safe side?
A week, 5 days.
Okay, and then how long back?
About the same distance.
That, how do we know definitively that the brook of Egypt, that would be the border?
You got some more maps in your Bible there that gives the borders of the countries at that time frame. And that terminology, the brook of Egypt, meant when you cross the brook, you're now in Egypt.
Well, I'm sure that there's some streets nearby that say the Oklahoma Boulevard, but that doesn't mean when I go there that
I understand what you're saying, okay? I'm just, you know, I'm going back and looking at the history
On
books
map
and trying to
4,
find
it's
out
about
where it was.
150 miles.
Do what?
Map 4. See that?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to,
That's as the crow flies.
It's in Egypt. The brook of Egypt is over the border, according to map number 9.
Okay, map 9.
map number 9,
Map number 9.
map number 9
there it is.
shows the brook of Egypt inside the borders of the land of Egypt.
It is, so that's
See,
So now,
where?
Some distance, yeah.
Where is the brook of Egypt?
see,
That, and that is a modern map. Well, this is a modern
Well,
map.
that's the one that I looked at before.
Yeah.
But I'll take that.
I mean, what else have we got to go by, you know?
No, that's still 50.
That would,
It would still put it over, 50 miles.
He says it's still put at 50 miles, okay?
more than 50.
No, 100 miles.
Let's see. Yeah, that's right. About 90 miles.
Yeah.
About 90.
Okay, we're talking about a 40-day time frame.
Can they make it
They
there?
could go down.
Can they make it there and back
In 2 weeks.
in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Within 40 days.
But here's my point. What I'm trying to get at, there's a whole lot of difference between 2 or 3 weeks there and 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they could do all that, still do all that in 40
They
days.
can still do all of that in 40 days, and that's all I'm trying to get at, is if we go by what the Scripture says, as being tempered by what Torah says, then the Torah gives you the understanding of what New Testament Scriptures are talking about. Without it, you have no concept. Without the foundation of the Torah, you're left to believe whatever somebody says.
Are we still taking?
Yeah, we're still taping. But I think, that concludes the readings for this day. I'll tell you what I think I'd like to do, if y'all don't mind, if we can move away from this one for just a moment. Just in keeping with tradition. Okay? Tradition says that we always read Genesis chapter 1 on this day. Okay? So if y'all wouldn't mind, can we go over to Genesis chapter 1, and we're just going to breeze through it. Because we're not going to really start on it, for a while. But remember, as we talk about the Torah, and as we read in Genesis chapter 1, remember both Peter and in the Psalms it says that with Yahweh one day is as 1,000 years, right? Now as we read the creation of everything in 6 days, remember that he tells us that was the evening and the morning of that day. That clarifies it as a 24-hour period, not 1,000 years. Okay? Are y'all ready to get into it? When they quit doing what they're doing, we'll get into Genesis 1, right? I know how hard it is to concentrate with all this going on. It's okay.
It's okay, go ahead.
Okay.
We're cool.
We weren't being noisy.
We're cool.
Being nasty.
Genesis Bereshit, chapter 1. In the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. In the Reshit, in the firstborn, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness on the face of the deep. The spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. And Elohim, Yahweh, said, actually in the Hebrew it says, he said, light be, light was. I mean, he doesn't have to go into a whole lot of descriptive stuff. He just speaks one word and it comes to pass. His word has the power within itself to come to pass. Verse 4, and Yahweh, Elohim, saw the light, it was good. And Elohim divided the light from the darkness. Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were day echad, or one day, first day. Yom echad. Then Elohim said, let there be a firmament, or an expanse, in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. The firmament, or the expanse, was not on the land, it was the layer that separated the waters above from the waters in the earth. Those were the two. Okay? Remember, when we go back and look in verse 2, it said the spirit of Elohim was hovering over the face of the waters. That was, have to recognize that was a position, a visual, you're looking at the face of water, but you look up and you see the expanse of the waters above, then you see the waters below. That's kind of where that was. That's where the expanse is. Verse 7, thus Elohim made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters above the firmament, and it was so. And Elohim called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning Yom Sheni, the second day. Then Elohim said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry appear, and it was so. And Elohim called the dry earth. And the gathering together of the waters he called seas, and Elohim saw it was good. Then Elohim said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth, and it was so. The earth brought forth grass, the herb yielding seed according to its kind, the tree yielding fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind, and Elohim saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were Yom Shlishi, the third day. Then Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and it was so. Then Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Elohim set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw it was good. So the evening and the morning were Yom Rebi'i, fourth day. Notice it was on the fourth day we created what, the great light and the lesser light, the sun and the moon. So the light, going back over there into verse 3, he said, light be, and light was. What light was that? That wasn't the sun and the moon.
The firstborn.
So again in the Gospel of John he said, that light was who? That light was Yehosha. Okay. Verse 20, then Elohim said, let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens. So Elohim created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth. So the evening and the morning were Yom Hamash, fifth day. Then Elohim said, let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth according to its kind, and it was so. And Elohim made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. It's still on sixth day, right? Then Elohim said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim he created him, male and female he created them. Then Elohim blessed them, and Elohim said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And Elohim said, see, I have given you every herb yielding seed which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed to you, it shall be for food. Also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food, and it was so. What did everything eat?
Herbs.
Herbs. Vegetation. Then Elohim saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were Yom Shishi, sixth day. Now, actually, the next three verses of chapter 2 is really part of the first thought of chapter 1. So it was man that put these chapter and verse in there, but he didn't do a very good job of it anyway. But in verse 1 of chapter 2 it says, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day, Yom Shiva,
Shabbat.
he ended his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, or set it apart, because in it he rested from all his work which Yahweh had created and made. He blessed the seventh day, he set it apart, and he rested in it. How does that give anybody the right to pick any one of seven? You may can pick any one of seven and call it your day if you want to, but that doesn't change what he did. And no matter what you can do, you can throw out all the word that you want to. You cannot go back and change what Yahweh did. And what did he did?
It all.
He blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which Elohim had created and made. You can't change what's already come to pass and established. So what day did he sanctify and bless? Sabbath day. Shabbat. Was that the first day? Seventh day. It wasn't the fourth day? Seventh day. Okay. That's it. That concludes the reading for this day, and I thank everybody for everything for the year, right? Because we're over for the year, right?
No,
We are?
we're just getting started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just started.
Well, as far as the tapes and everything is concerned, this teaching is finished.
I was saying, where is she at? Where is she at?